Warning, we are not your attorneys. Please, don't take anything we say as legal advice. I'm Jeff.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Derrick.
And you are listening to the Not So Grand Jury,
which is now sponsored by Morwa P. LLC. And we're back. All right, guys. So you have all three of the Not So Grand Jury for a nice little sidebar here. Which, listen, once in a while we do sidebars, and I think we have a bunch of stuff to talk about, so we might as well do it. We're going to sort of do two things here. One is we'll talk about some listener feedback and suggestions and commentary that I think we're going to talk about, and then we didn't have enough space to put everything that Matt Simpson, our guest host from the Thomas Crown Affair, talked to me about. So we will have a little clip after this where Matt talks about the sailboat scene in the Thomas Crown Affair, as well as his thoughts on the movie as a whole. We didn't think that the talking about boating made sense for a legal podcast at first, or at least, it seemed like a nice little sidebar, but I mean, more facts than
you
legal.
say that, but we did Jaws and we talked about fishing boats.
Correct. This was more of a factual inaccuracy rather than a legal inaccuracy.
Oh, okay.
But it was a good commentary, and he was a former champion sailor, so I felt like that was a good thing to talk about. So, cool. So we'll add that at the end of the sidebar. But first, I want to get into some fun listener feedback. So first, this goes into the category of what the people want. On January 27th, we got some fan mail from someone who they actually texted us, so I actually don't know the name of the person, but the feedback was, first, that you reference older episodes before the reboot. Is there a place we can listen to these old episodes? I think the answer is not currently, but that might change.
Yes.
Okay.
We have the episodes. They are currently not stored in a publicly accessible place. But I want to draw a line between those and the beta episodes that we did, the three of us, to kind of see if the dynamic worked.
Right. So
those are less likely to see the light of day, even though we do reference them.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've referenced a few of them, but due to some technical issues, we may not be able to release them. So our apologies to that. If we've ever referenced Columbo, you may never hear about Columbo, unfortunately.
But they were amazing. You guys really missed out.
It's a tragedy.
Fun fact, they probably weren't. So it might be okay that those are not released. But I will say, I do believe we may have the Zoom recording from it, so we might be able to pull something, but I can't.
I would be more happy to re-record one of those episodes.
Fair enough.
Than to air one of the betas.
Fair enough. So the short version is there will likely be some old episodes and beta versions potentially released, but we'll do it over the course of time. So you can't listen to them publicly right now, but there were some good ones from the pre-Derrick show, and I would love to have some of them released.
If you do want those, let us know. And the kind of the feedback we get, it might be like if we open a Patreon page, it could be a reward for patrons or something like that.
I have plans for one of them. I think I know when I want to release at least one of them.
Fantastic. So short version, they may be coming out soon, to be determined. But more importantly, another thing that this person mentioned was I got a show recommendation, Suits, which is not the first time nor the last time. Because
I have received that recommendation in person from people as well.
I have received
that. I don't talk to people, so no one tells me about that.
So Mike has no friends and doesn't talk to people, but Jeff and I talk to people, and we've had Suits as a recommendation. Also, Stephen C., who wrote a comment on Spotify. His entire comment was, "Are you guys planning to do any episodes about Suits?" And then you heard in the last episode that my guest host, Matt Simpson, brought up Suits as an issue. So
sure,
the people want Suits, guys.
So an interest in Suits. Okay.
So I think we're going to have to do Suits soon.
Heard.
Heard. Yeah, it's been heard. Your feedback has been acknowledged. We will likely do something on Suits. I can't imagine what episode we would do that wouldn't last for forever. So we'll try to find one that's not going to completely ruin our lives.
I have only watched the pilot episode.
Oh boy.
I mean, it's not How to Get Away with Murder, but if people like that show, they may not like my reaction to it. It's at least a fun watch, even if it is.
If fans have any recommendations for like the episode that we should do, or like maybe a 2-part or something, like
good call.
Like maybe we'll just do the pilot, or maybe if there's a big outcry to do one specific episode.
Yeah,
we've shot Mr. Burns of Suits.
Yeah, so if you guys have ideas, please send us an email, a text, a comment on Spotify, whatever it is you do. Let us know if you have a good recommendation on which episode of Suits you would like us to do, because I've watched Suits all the way through probably twice now. I basically had to turn my lawyer brain off at times just to be like, I can't. Like the number of conflicts issues, the number of just insane things that happen in the show. Like there are multiple times in Suits where one partner is up against another partner in the same firm with regards to either a negotiation of a like deal or whatever, and they actively undermine each other. And that's just hitting the bare level. There's so much, like, you guys are going to have a hard time watching it for the legal parts of it.
This is, so for the listeners, we literally just finished recording our episode on Daredevil. And Derrick, in that episode, you mentioned that, New York has weekend courts and night court, and I think maybe we should there's a reboot of Night Court.
Oh yeah,
that could be interesting.
That could be a fun one.
Yeah, I don't know if any of our listeners have suggested that yet or not, but
nothing from my end. So
I'm suggesting that one.
I love that suggestion. Another suggestion we got, Constance emailed us a few months back to apparently she came across our podcast through The Scathing Atheist. So thank you again to The Scathing Atheist for having Jeff on, right? And getting a nice little boost from them. But she had recommended the HBO series Oz, which I do think could be, there could be certainly some fun episodes from Oz. So
wow, that's got to be 25, 26 years old.
It's a long lasting series. So but I can only imagine we've got some good stuff in there, especially with like she had brought up, the obligation of the state to protect people in custody. I can only imagine the kind of stuff we could do with that. So I think that's got to be on our radar too. And I think those are the biggest suggestions we had. I do also want to bring up listener feedback from Allison, who sent us an email, who had a not going to say very long, but a decently long email regarding our X-Files episode on tombs. So, Mike, this is right up your wheelhouse. She had a couple of comments on the issues we raised. The first thing was with regard to the polygraph, which I think was I took that section.
Yeah.
And she said, with regards to Mulder's questions during the polygraph, I always thought that the point is that they threw Toombs off kilter. He's startled that anyone might suspect the truth of his nature in past life, so if he's gaming the polygraph, he actually is losing control temporarily, and it shows on the results.
Okay.
It's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
I still don't fully understand how Mulder... I know he's an expert in everything, but how would Mulder be able to read it better than the person whose entire life job is to read polygraph results?
So I think I want to. We may have to do a correction because Mulder is not the one who reads those questions.
He adds questions.
Polygraph technician is the one that reads them.
Correct.
And Mulder says he inserted them.
Correct. He
into the list.
Correct. He asked the polygraph examiner to add those questions. Which again,
I don't remember if in our episode we said that Mulder was jumped in to read the question.
Right.
To
no, but he read the results and he was the one that said he These show that he was lying there.
Right. Okay.
Didn't lie about the murder, though.
Right, which again is interesting again because I wouldn't think, regardless of Mulder's amazing abilities to do everything that currently exists in the world, I just don't see a scenario where he reads a polygraph better than the person who would actually, whose job is to do that. So, still a little confused about that. The next comment that Allison had was, and I think we got into this whole thing about like, does he have a need to go into small spaces or a desire? That was a whole thing between you and Mike. Her comment is, with the small spaces, she doesn't think it's exactly a need. It's more a tool in defense. So if he can access places using means that others dismiss as an impossibility, it gives him an edge. So like no one other than Mulder thinks he could crawl through like a power outlet or something. I'm curious, because again, I think you guys sort of disagreed on that, whether it was a need or a desire or a defense or a tool. Either way, he's creepy as shit. That's the sort of that's
I mean,
what I take out of it.
he likes to nest in like at least confined.
Yeah.
The show doesn't show him like nesting in an air duct, but in small rooms.
I think it was a need. I'm still convinced that like if you had like a pet that likes burrowing or hiding somewhere, like they want to do that, whether or not they're like it fits their other needs at the time.
Sure, yeah. Cats in boxes. Yeah,
little dogs.
Yeah,
snakes.
Yeah,
sure.
Either way, either way, I 100% agree with Allison that he's very creepy. Yes. And then finally, her last comment was with regards to the insanity plea. So this was the part you had taken, Jeff. She had said, as a total layperson, the subtext I have always felt TV and movies were trying to convey about, like, the quote, getting off of an insanity plea. She thinks it's like sort of twofold. It's like, first, that the hospital would be nicer than the prison, like offering better medical treatment and also treating them better. And second, that the staff would be sort of easily manipulated into believing they were quote unquote cured, and so they could escape or, be given better privileges or whatever. I actually don't think that's terribly far off of like sort of what the concept is in real life in some ways too. Like, obviously, I think we do a better job of identifying who should be going to these, to who is truly insane and actually needs help rather than is a person that should be jailed. But I do think that that's what people think when it comes to the insanity plea, is that like they got a better deal than if they were just put into prison.
Okay.
Yeah. It's also misconception of time where like there have been periods in the past where people did get off on weird defenses that probably wouldn't work today. I'm thinking like the Harvey Milk thing with the Twinkie defense.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't, I don't think that would work today. I think the standard is much different. But that's what I think that's what they're usually calling back to in TV shows without being aware that the law has changed itself.
Sure. I recently did a guest spot on another movie podcast where there was a judge literally said the line, "I'm going to dismiss this case on a technicality," which is not how judges
What was the movie?
It was called Suing the Devil.
Oh.
A guy sues the devil personally for $8 trillion.
Oh. Was this a Christian movie or?
Yeah.
I actually listened to that whole episode, Jeff, because it was so good. Your podcast. So what podcast was it? It's Horrible Movies.
It's called God Awful Movies.
God Awful Movies. Yes. Yes. Jeff has a great episode where it sounds like such a horror. I didn't even watch the movie, but it sounds like such a horrible movie.
I will go listen to that.
I mean, it is a hilariously bad movie. It is an entertaining watch. As much as I put on in that episode, like, how dare you put me through this?
It's awesome. But finally, we have save the best for last. Our best email from, and I'm going to read it just as the way that she signed it, Mary, yep, I'm Jeff's mom, Blackwell. So,
hi, Mom. Hi, Jeff's
Mary.
mom.
Hi, Mom.
Mary, thank you.
Hi, Mom.
Thank you so much for the email. It was a fantastic email. She was very happy with our Trial of the Chicago 7 episode, mostly because we didn't swear that much. So, I'm going to apologize because I'm confident we swore a lot in the last couple. So, oops.
I mean, it happens less in the good movie discussions.
Right. Good movie discussions tend to be less swearing.
Hey,
yep.
Sorry. Not going to change right now.
Nope. I apologize. She also did ask about she wanted to get more into the trial transcript of the trial of the Chicago 7. So,
maybe we could drop a link in the description for this.
I actually want to drop in a link to the Audible.
Sure, yeah.
Where there's like 10 hours of known stars reading the trial transcript.
I think like Jeff Daniels and
Yep.
name actors.
There's some name actors, and I think what's really interesting about that is I haven't listened to it, but I've read a lot about it. It sort of shows how absolutely ridiculous that trial was, and how Aaron Sorkin didn't want to include certain things in because it seemed so unrealistic, even though it actually happened. Like
Timothy Leary showing up.
Like one of the defendants doing a handstand on defense counsel's table, and he's like, I don't want to include that. No one would think that actually happened, but it happened.
Yeah.
Like, kind of nuts. Also, Mary recommended Fisk on Netflix as something for us to discuss on our podcast. It is a Australian show, so I would be curious as to how we would deal with the legal aspects of it, but I've never watched it, so now I have something to watch to see if this would be something we would jump into.
I mean, it is a common law system, so
I could.
There's at least that.
I could see us diving into it, but anyway. So first off, thank you to all of you for sending us your commentary and your emails. Please keep them coming. As you can tell, we actually do take them into account, especially if we get enough people telling us to do Suits. We'll actually frickin' do Suits. So here we are.
All right.
Yeah, and then now we're going to jump in the clip between my conversation with Matt about boats and other things. Boats.
Boat law. All right.
And there will be another sidebar in the near future, also relating to Thomas Crown and art theft.
Okay.
So let's jump from one silly scene to what I think is another silly scene. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the sailboats.
Those are some cool boats.
They look like some cool boats. I'm not a sailor. I do watch the America's Cup once every few years, normally when the U.S. is in it, which has been a long time since we've had I think it's been 2017 was when Team USA was the last time they
won.
Did anything.
They've been in it.
They won. Yeah, we've been in it, but we haven't haven't won the thing or been even that close to being competitive since then. Although I recall that was a really fun race, as I recall.
There's the game. There was the race number 7 in San Francisco. I think it was Spithill sailing that one. That is one of the greatest comebacks. They were down 3-1 or 3-0, and they won 4-3 in a best of 7.
Yeah.
It was it doesn't happen. As a Leafs fan, I can tell you what happens when it's 3-1 against us, but you don't see the 4-.
The poor Maple Leafs.
Oh.
Another
podcast topic.
Absolutely.
Although I was at the Four Nations Championship last week. So
yes, and that is phenomenal. And I would say I wish I was there, but the way it ended, I'm happy I wasn't there. So yes, congratulations to Canada / the 51st state. So talk to me about this boat.
Yeah,
it's $100,000 boat.
Oh.
It seems like it's.
No.
Like, I want to know. Tell me everything you know about what that boat scene was. And, like, is this what rich people do? Just sail boats in their off time?
So there's definitely a bunch of rich people that like boats. Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, being the most famous probably currently. He sponsors Team USA for the America's Cup, among others. And he's been around yachting for a long period of time. Bloomberg likes to sail, although he doesn't race as much. Jim Clark, who founded Netscape, is the sponsor of another big boat. So, racing sailboats is not cheap, and you need a lot of money to do it at that level. And so there are a bunch of rich people that like investing in it, just like sports, like race cars and other opportunities to go fast. So there are a lot of people, and it's nice to have really rich homes around the water where you've got boats, and they naturally go together, of course. I would guess that boat, and I tried to look into it a little bit because when we were talking about this conversation, it was, is that really, when she says, I saw him wreck $100,000 boat. Yeah, even back then, that thing would have been at least $1 million, I would guess. In today's dollars, it's probably worth a whole lot more. And there were two of them, right? And it wasn't clear why he had a white and a yellow one. And were they just for match racing like that? So he probably had both of them and he was just doing it for fun. We don't know who was driving the other one. I think she was a little hyperbolic when she said that he wrecked it. Look, flipping a catamaran like that is not a good idea. There's probably some damage that was done, but you can bring it back up and they aren't necessarily totaled.
Right.
It's not like flipping your car. Those boats can be brought back up, and the guy that was out on the spit and was trapezing, the Pierce Brosnan character, the fact that he then fell onto the sail, that would have hurt. That would have done a fair bit of damage, right? You'll break something probably doing that. So the fact that he just walked away without scratches is a little surprising. You can see one of the guys bail off the back as it's going over. He just sort of gives up and says, "I'm out of here." That's fairly realistic. Okay. That was somebody part of the film crew that was like, okay, I need to jump from this.
I know you used to, for the most part, you raced lasers, right? You didn't really race big boats.
Yeah, I didn't race as much on the big boats, and I didn't do much at all catamaran sailing. So that's
okay.
That's a little bit different. I've been out on a wire trapezing a few times on other types of boats, but I would definitely not say that type of boat racing is fun. That in its day, those were the super fast boats, right? We now have foiling boats that sort of lift up on foils. The latest America's Cup boats lift up. It's like an airplane wing, and they take Bernoulli's principle and make it vertical and lift out of the water.
You're going to have to remind me, and this might not make the podcast, but I'm going to ask anyway. There was a situation years ago where they didn't think they could do something with the foils, and someone managed to do it, right? They thought it was going to be slower.
Yeah, it was whether they could tack while on foil. So jibing is when the wind's behind you and you go from one side, the sail goes from one side to the other. Just given the aerodynamics and how that all works, they were able to keep the boat up on its foils and jibe over while staying on their foils. It's a much faster action. Tacking is that's when your butt goes through the wind, the stern of the boat. When the nose goes through the wind, that's tacking, which is just a different wind force, and that is a slower activity. And so for a while, the expectation was that nobody was going to be able to, that when you tacked, you would naturally lower the boat back into the water and then get back up on foils, which is slower because you've got all the water resistance and everything and the drag that happens when you do that. I think it was the Kiwis, although it might have been the Americans, I don't quite remember, who were able to, in some of the practice races in the lead up, tack while staying on foils. And that was a huge game changer, right? That's just such a competitive advantage. It's like not having to pit stop.
Interesting. I remember you and I talked about that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's cool how the technology's developed. There's critiques of some of that racing because how much of it is the boat and the technology now versus the sailors. I think they're making good efforts to get it back to being more of the sailors. For the longest time, the concept is one design racing, which is the boats should be pretty much the same and you want to test the sailors. And then it kind of got away from it when the Kiwis or the Australians launched their monster boat that had 112 people on it in the 80s. And so Dennis Conner responded for the Americans by launching a catamaran. And there's been more litigation. You want to do a podcast on litigation, you should go talk about the America's Cup litigation. They have sued each other left and right over the rules because they're not exactly clear. And so they went to catamarans and they agreed to go to another different type of boat. Then they went to catamarans again, but foiling catamarans because those were the only boats that could foil. And then they found out how to foil a monohull, so now we're into monohulls foiling.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's
interesting.
Technology.
Yeah. So to sum up from the sailboat conversation from this movie, rich people do race boats for funsies, so that part is true.
Yeah.
And or at least theoretically true. It is something that could definitely happen. The boat's much more expensive than we think it is. We also don't think he just wrecked it because he liked the splash. We think that he was doing, I assume he was just trying to get as much speed as possible and then tip the damn thing.
That did not appear intentional. You don't intentionally flip, you push hard, and if the tipping is a consequence, fine, but he also had his spinnaker up when the other guy didn't, which was a little confusing. Like, why is he pushing that hard in that direction with the spinnaker? Are they racing? Are they going for a mark? Like, we don't know what they're aiming for. So the direction to the wind, why he had his chute up and the other guy didn't, that was a little bit confusing. I want to know why Renee wasn't invited on the boat too, right?
Seriously.
I mean, she should have been on there and having some fun. You can have a passenger on that. If you're going to impress a girl, bring her on the boat with you.
And then crash it.
Well, maybe not crash it with her on it, but...
Well, and also, we also are of the assumption that Thomas Crown would have a broken something if he, based on what
it would have hurt. Yeah, at least some serious bruising. I mean, they weren't wearing helmets. Watch the America's Cup guys now, and they've got helmets, and they've got flak jackets, and they're wearing, these really cool auto-inflating life jackets. You got to protect yourself.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, cool. All right, that's very helpful, Matt. Let's get into the last part, which is tell me how you like the movie. So the way we have done, we've actually switched during our podcast. We now basically, the three of us hosts basically say, like, we pretend we're a judge, and we say, does this movie, one, is it good? Is it just an entertaining movie? Do we like the movie? And if so, we affirm it and say it's a good movie. And then we say, is it good on the law? And the same thing. Three of us, three judges, basically three-judge panel. As I recall, we all said that we were we loved the movie, or at least I know I did. I'm forgetting what the other guy said. I also was I think I said that the law was not, and a lot of our conversations on the law had more to do with their like illegal entry into his place on multiple occasions, and how she was doing more police work than she probably is allowed to do as a, basically a foreign agent.
Yeah,
I mean, she's an investigator. How is she?
She's not even a cop. But she's not a cop in a foreign jurisdiction either. She's just a...
Correct. So she couldn't even be deputized or anything like that. So I believe we actually said the law wasn't up to it. But curious to your thoughts. What do you think of the movie? What do you think of the sort of legal realities?
Yeah,
of the movie?
my entertainment standards are quite low. I have two small children, but even before them, give me an animated squirrel and I'm happy. So I've always loved the Thomas Crown Affair movie. I've always found it entertaining. I like sort of the idea that somebody is this smart and playful and coy. I mean, who doesn't like Rene Russo? So, there were a lot of pros to me of this movie. It's one that I will watch on flights to this day, if I need to kill some time or just want something that I can focus in and out on. So I personally find the movie entertaining. I don't think it won any Oscars. I don't think it should have won any Oscars. But look, it satisfies my itch to be entertained. And look, anybody that includes boats and M&A, you're going to have my attention. I'm going to go try and watch that movie. So on your first question, from an entertainment perspective, I certainly find it interesting. From the legal perspective, yeah, I mean, I'll leave it to you litigators and white-collar folks and some of the folks that know a lot of different areas for all the infirmities in other parts. The M&A was not overly well thought. It was a little bit of character development, which sort of showed you how he made all of his money as a coy negotiator and deal maker. They sort of skipped over a whole lot of details and a whole lot of context and just sort of threw some fun lines out there. But it was entertaining, right? I think it still added that those pieces still added value. It was, don't mess with him. He's going to outsmart you. And so, yeah, I think I would definitely say this is not a My Cousin Vinny quality legal movie. But it is it's certainly entertaining.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you for joining us, Matt. Appreciate the time. And I'm sure we're going to have you on again for something. Maybe Suits.
I am always happy to chat. Suits is filmed in Toronto, so you should do a whole segment on the locations there.
Well, I'm sure. Well, I guess we'll just have to go on site and check it out, obviously.
We might have to do that. They film across the street from my current office and my old office, too. So.
Oh, funny enough.
We can do a Suits tour.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Colleen.
Yes. Thank you, my sister, for editing, especially now when we've done multiple versions of the same podcast. So thank you, Colleen.
The Not So Grand Jury is sponsored by Morwa P. LLC.
The opinions expressed in the Not So Grand Jury are those of the hosts themselves, and not of their respective employers.
The theme music for the Not So Grand Jury is from Gustav Holst's Jupiter and is in the public domain.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you want to suggest future movies, or even if you want to offer corrections, you can email us at notsograndjury@gmail.com or message us on any of our social media accounts.
The Not So Grand Jury is copyright 2025, all rights reserved.